Hello and welcome back into the Duke Wisdom Podcast. Recording this one late Wednesday night. So when you're listening to this, it'll be the day before the Arizona game. Like I've said, I said it on Tuesday's episode, I'm not going to be watching the Arizona game, but I do have one of the Duke Wisdom Network writers, Caleb, that's gonna help us out with breaking down some of the key takeaways from the Arizona game. I'll be sure to sneak some looks at it and hopefully see when Jeremy Roach crosses the 1,000 point threshold and just see in general how the game's going. But I won't be watching it, but I will watch it later and I'll be breaking it down next Tuesday for you guys. But I want to talk about a couple things before I get into the Arizona preview, although the biggest topic for this episode will be the Arizona preview without a doubt. So last episode, I talked a lot about the Jaden Schutt scenario because, a lot of people were concerned that Schutt didn't play. They thought, he must be in Jon Scheyer's doghouse somehow. That why wasn't he playing? I speculated that there may be an injury. Never speculate. I learned that lesson. That does not seem to be the case, according to the reporting of Steve Wiseman of the News and Observer. Jaden Schutt intends to redshirt this season, which, seems like a very new development. I don't think that was the train of thought for Schutt at Countdown to Craziness. I don't think that was even the train of thought for the exhibition. I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but that's just my hunch. That's my gut feeling. I don't believe that was their intention heading into the season, but it's where we are now. And I think it's an interesting development for him to redshirt as a sophomore. There's a couple ways that you can look at that. You can look at that as he just doesn't see where he's going to find time on the floor this season. And so he thinks that it would be better suited if he redshirted and maintained another year of eligibility and will remain at Duke. And I suppose the only pushback I have for that is with Duke's recruiting class coming in with so many, similar play styles to Schutt in that recruiting class. You've got so many wing players of similar heights that do similar jobs that shoot three-pointers, essentially, and some of them do it at a higher level. And so it seems just like, you're sitting this out. You get another year of eligibility at Duke, but are you really seeing the floor any more next year than you would have this season? And then you're a natural senior before you really even feel like it's possible that he's seeing the floor. The other way to look at this is the red shirt is really just a way of saying, I don't want to lose this year of eligibility and I'm going to transfer. Whether it's he does that mid-season or he does it at the end of the season, I've always believed that there was a good chance Jaden Schutt might transfer eventually, but he said that's not him, that he's not the type to do it, but it just feels like, the odds are really pointing toward a transfer at some point with just how many similar players occupy the roster currently, and certainly how many are going to occupy this roster come next season. I struggle to figure out where Jaden Schutt comes in all this. And so him redshirting this year was a bit of a surprise to me because the fact that he came back, I thought that he was just going to try to duke it out, get playing time on the court. And I honestly thought he was neck to neck with TJ Power. But it seems like maybe that's not the case. Maybe he's not going to play as much as, not that I thought he was going to play a whole lot, but I thought he'd actually maybe see some minutes in the beginning of the season. Maybe that wasn't the case, and that went into this decision. I don't want to speculate any further. I think what I've done is just laid out the possible, options of why he redshirted. It can just be because he doesn't see a path for him to see the floor this season, and he doesn't want to lose a year of eligibility at Duke, or it could be a vessel that leads to an eventual transfer. I think those are the two possibilities that come with this decision. I'm not going to, say that one of them is the definitive truth. Obviously, we don't know that. Jaden Schutt hasn't said that, and he's the one that knows. And so I don't want to speculate any further. I'm just laying out what I think are the options there and what is a pretty intriguing development with the Duke sophomore. So moving on from Jaden Schutt, today, Wednesday, that is, was the beginning of the early signing period. So 4 out of the 5 committed players for the class of 2024 committed to Duke signed their letters of intent today. So Cooper Flagg did so, as did Darren Harris and Patrick Ngongba, who are both high school teammates. Con Canapel also did. The only commit that did not is Isaiah Evans. And, I talked about it Tuesday for everybody that was like, Isaiah Evans is going to jump ship. Well, he said he's not going anywhere. He hasn't signed the letter of intent yet. I assume he will pretty soon. That Trilly Donovan, Thanos, and Infinity Gauntlet saying one of the stones is loose. I don't think one of the stones is loose. Like, I don't think it's going to happen now. If that's the case, there's so much time left, and you can sign the letter of intent, and you can get out of it. You can get out of a letter of intent. So you can't ever really say, especially in today's brand, that there's no chance that they lose a commitment. I mean, I certainly at this time last year wasn't thinking that Mackenzie Mbako was going to play at Indiana, but here we are. He's playing at Indiana. So, you can never predict with 100% certainty what's going to happen. Just right now, what we know is we have 5 guys committed to Duke. 4 of them have now signed their letter of intent. And it seems quite possible that a 6th commit could join that number 1 overall class, potentially nearing a decision for VJ Edgecombe, who is recently increased to, I think, the number 5 player in the class by On3 Sports. He's number 5 on the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. So if he were to commit to Duke, that would give Duke 2 top 5 commitments. I think 3 top 11, 4 top 16s, 5 top 20s, and 6 top 60s. So that's big. That's big. That's a heck of a class that Jon Scheyer has brought in. Very impressive stuff.
Want to join a community of Duke accounts publishing news, theories, and predictions on Duke athletics? Join the Duke Wisdom Network. Just go to dukewisdom.org/join network today and fill out the form with your name and social media. Or you can DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram. Become a part of the community of Duke fans publishing their takes today. Again, that's dukewisdom.org/join network or DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram.
I just want to take a minute to shout out some of the works going on, and shout out all the people that have sacrificed their time with the Duke Wisdom Network. Man, I really appreciate it, and I love giving fans an opportunity to become sports writers. No matter what their level of expertise is, no matter how good of a writer they think they are, no matter how good of a command they think they have grammatically. I love just giving people the chance to get their ideas out, get their thoughts out, and write something and be proud of it and like seeing it out there. And I think that's what the Duke Wisdom Network is really for. Sean Smith just recently published his first article on the Duke Wisdom Network talking about looking at rotations and lineups for the 24-25 season, and how the freshman commits and the incoming freshman commits for next year, like Cooper Flagg, how do they fit into those lineups, and what's Duke's game going to look like for next season? So really interesting read there. Make sure you go to dukewisdom.org and read that one. I also published the game article for the Duke Richmond women's basketball game yesterday. So Tuesday is when I published that, talking about that game and really highlighting the dominance of Richardson and Akinanwa as they went off in Duke's opener. Duke will play Florida Gulf Coast the day this comes out, Thursday, and I will hopefully be in attendance. I should be in attendance for that as well. So big things happening with the Duke Wisdom right now. Very proud of the direction it is in. Make sure you guys go read those articles and send the writers love, because it's really important to me to give people the opportunity to come in and write these articles and have a cool little space that's that gives people the opportunity to do things that maybe they didn't think they could. And if you want to do that, make sure to go to dukewisdom.org/join network and fill out that form, man. You know, if you don't think you can do it, you don't think you're a good writer, think again. Just put pen to paper, or more accurately, fingers to keyboard, and, you know, chop something out. And I'm always here. I'm the editor for the site. I'm always here to help out with the AP style and the grammar and that kind of thing. That's the kind of tedious stuff that a journalist knows. And, you know, if you're just an everyday fan or, you know, aspiring writer and that's not your forte, you know, grammar that is, or style that is, that's fine. That's what I'm here for, you know? That's what I'm here for. I just want you to share your ideas, your perspectives, that kind of thing. I think that's what's important. And so now I'm done with my shameless plug for Duke Wisdom articles. Now it's on to the Arizona preview. So, yeah, Duke fans, rejoice, rejoice. Caleb Love will return to Cameron Indoor Stadium for the 4th time. I know everybody's excited. Everybody's looking forward to their favorite former Tar Heel coming into town. Caleb Love, Cameron Indoor Stadium, his freshman year, 25 points. His sophomore year, 22 points. His junior year, 12. So that's just south of 20 points per game that Caleb Love averages in Cameron Indoor Stadium. Silver lining, if you're Duke, that point value has gone down every year. The Blue Devils can only hope that he scores less than 12. I think he had 12 in Arizona's opener against Morgan State. So, and speaking of their opener against Morgan State, the Wildcats won that one by 63 points, 122-59. They had 8 players in double figures. I mean, that's a incredibly lopsided game. Again, it's Morgan State, so you can't read but so far into a Morgan State game. But there's a lot of weapons on this Arizona team. There's a whole lot of weapons. And it really starts with Omar Ballo. He's just so big and athletic and commanding as a player in the interior. It's not just him. Keshad Johnson is so solid as well. So when you've got Ballo and Johnson inside and their physicality and their strength, their ability to play above the rim, that's got to be a concern if you're Duke. It's really got to be a concern if you're Duke. Christian Reeves isn't ready for that level of game time action, which I don't know that he is. And I don't know how much Sean Stewart's going to play either. Guess we'll see. That really leaves Ryan Young and Kyle Filipowski. And, you know, we're not going to bank on Ryan Young defensively. So a lot of the defensive and, you know, interior defense, that's being shouldered by Kyle. And man, is that going to be a tough assignment for Filipowski. He's struggled to guard a lot of driving and backdoor cuts in the exhibition and against Dartmouth. He hasn't been a bad defender necessarily, but there's been certain things he struggled with as he adjusts to being the primary defender at the 5, which he was not really expected to do last season because the 5 was being run by Derek Lively, and when it wasn't Lively, it was Ryan Young. But now he is the primary 5, and he's playing one of the best 5s in the country in Ballo. And that's going to be really difficult of a defensive assignment for Duke. I guess the silver lining there is that he's not going to be much of a threat to put the ball on the floor, but the physicality is going to be difficult to handle. And he may not be a penetration threat, but Arizona as a team certainly contains that threat because this team kind of is a little bit different than last year's Arizona team when they had Tabellis. He anchored down the middle, and he with Ballo, a lot of interior play. You'll still obviously see that interior play, and if I was Arizona, I'd encourage it, given and try to exploit Duke, you know, size-wise and physicality-wise. But this is more of a perimeter-oriented Arizona team, and not necessarily in a three-point shooting type of way. More so that they have guards that can get downhill. And that also is a bit of a concern for Duke because dribble drives, when they get past the guard, seem like they've had a lot of success so far against the Blue Devils in this very, 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 very early season. Don't get me wrong, very early. Not much of a sample size at all. And there's a concern there. It's perimeter oriented in these, which means that I feel like there's going to be a lot of pressure on Duke's guards. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Proctor, Roach, McCain, and Foster to stay in front of their man. And that is difficult because Jeremy Roach has struggled to do that at times in his career. And, I think that even Dartmouth tried to exploit he and Jared McCain at times, size-wise. Certainly Arizona will, a team that's as good as getting downhill and driving aggressively as they are. They're going to attack those guards. And if they can get past those guards, they're going to force Kyle Filipowski to come up on them. And then, then they've got dump passes to Ballo and Johnson. And that's going to be a really difficult task for Duke. The whole team is going to have to play aggressive defensively. They're going to have to stand their ground and play physically on defense. That is imperative for the Blue Devils. I think that is the number one X factor to this game, is can Duke be physical enough and present enough defensively to win this game? And I think a big part of that is, will Mark Mitchell play in the game? Because if Mark Mitchell's playing, that adds an extra layer of height, physicality, and defensive skill set, because Mark Mitchell is probably the team's best defender. And so without Mitchell, I think Duke's going to be hard-pressed to win this game. Hard-pressed, because I simply don't know if they can get the defensive stops. Arizona has a high-powered offense, and it has an offense that is designed in a lot of ways to exploit the current weaknesses of the Duke defense. That's not to say they'll be successful in doing it, but on paper, it seems like they'll present some problems. And without Mitchell, those problems are only going to be, increased exponentially. So I think having Mark Mitchell on the floor is crucial. Duke wants to have him healthy and playing. And then the X factor becomes, even with Mitchell, can they hold down the fort defensively? Obviously, that is not the only factor that's going to come into this game. Duke's got to hit shots. Plain and simple. Both teams are perimeter-oriented teams with talented big men. Where Duke has the one-up on Arizona, aside from the fact that the game's being played in Cameron and the obvious home court advantage that comes with Cameron Indoor Stadium, is shooting. Ideally, Duke is a much better shooting team than Arizona. They have threats to shoot the ball from every position on the floor with Mark Mitchell, of course. Ryan Young, not an incredible three-point threat despite the tape from the summer, But Jared McCain, he can shoot it. Proctor shoots it. Roach shoots it. Foster shoots it. Mitchell doesn't shoot a lot, but when he does, percentage is solid. Filipowski already looks like he's a much better shooter efficiency-wise from what we've seen from him. Heck, even Jalen Blake's off the bench, shooter. TJ Powers, a shooter. This Duke team has three-point threats at every position from everywhere and off the bench. If they're making threes, Arizona's going to have a hard time matching them. Because threes are more than two. John Shire's figured that out. He loves the small ball brand. That has become very apparent very quickly. Duke's X factor is, can they play aggressive physical defense and can they hit threes? Those are the two things they need. Literally a 3-and-D game plan for Duke. That is what they need to do. If Duke can't find those three-pointers and they get out aggressed, I suppose, out physicaled, horrible choice of words by me right there, but if they cannot be more physical than Arizona, or at least get close to matching the physicality, and if they can't have more success as a three-point shooting team, then I expect Arizona to come in and win the game. Duke's going to have to execute in those ways to win the game. They're going to have to show that their interior defense is capable of guarding a high-quality big man like Ballo. It's going to be a difficult assignment for Filipowski. It's going to be a difficult assignment for the guards. That's why this is the first big test. This is why this game, to me, is going to show what this Duke team is capable of in this first half of the season. We're going to see just how good, how quickly this Duke team is on Friday. Because James Madison beat Michigan State. If Duke beats Michigan State next Tuesday, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised. And I don't think that one's going to be as telling as this game. I think the Arkansas game down the line will be telling. There's still a little bit of time before that game. And also, that's a road game. So I think there's more of a reasonable belief that maybe it's okay if they lose that first true road game, especially against such a good team in Arkansas. But when you're playing a home game like this, man, I mean, it just feels like you should win it because Duke went 20 years without losing a non-conference home game until Stephen F. Austin came in 2020, or I guess in the fall of 2019 for the 2019-20 season. It feels like, Duke isn't supposed to ever lose non-conference home games. But this one feels like a really difficult test. And if Duke is 2-0, by Saturday, if Duke is a 2-0 basketball team, we're going to know that this team means business, that they're already the real deal, that yes, they're going to develop, but they're already capable of winning at a very, very high level. And I think that is an important thing. And speaking of, a high-quality non-conference home matchup, when is the last time Duke scheduled a top 20 team not as a in-season tournament or not as a Big Ten or SEC challenge game? Like, when's the last time they scheduled a game like this in Cameron on their own accord? I think that's interesting. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of it. If you can think of it, leave a comment on the podcast wherever you're listening, or, tweet at Duke Wisdom or, whatever. But reach out, let me know, because I'm interested to know that. If you've got the answer, I'd like to know it. But I think certainly this will be a telling matchup with Arizona on Friday. A lot to look forward to. And just can't help but smile because college basketball is back and it's in full swing. And we finally got a major matchup. It's not Dartmouth. It's not Pembroke. It's number 12 Arizona. And it's the real deal. So, Duke fans, get ready and make sure you guys are watching and losing your minds for me, because I'll be watching this one a little late. But again, as always, thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to like and share the podcast, subscribe wherever you're listening. Follow at Duke_Wisdom on Instagram and Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube account. And thanks so much for listening, guys. I will talk to you on Tuesday.